Hello citizens of the verse, this is Digital Master and I'm bringing to you a video discussing an interesting topic in the Star Citizen community. And that is if Star Citizen is a pay-to-win game. I want to give my opinion straight away and then deep dive into why I feel the way that I do. So, do I feel Star Citizen is a pay-to-win game? In the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't say that it is, but I do think there are some subjective elements where people are justified in believing so. My decision to say no overall is purely based off my interpretation of what I believe pay-to-win means in connection with what type of game Star Citizen actually is. In the end, the answer to this question rests largely on each individual's interpretation of what pay-to-win means to them. Pay-to-win is one of those concepts that means something different to each individual. My work in this video is to try and make sense of the different perspectives on this topic and hopefully find some common ground. So to break this all down and explain my thoughts, I want to deep dive into the specifics of the question at hand and most importantly, the concept of what pay-to-win means as objectively as possible. So here's the table of contents. First, we'll discuss what pay-to-win actually means. 2, we'll talk about my interpretation of pay-to-win as it relates to Star Citizen. 3, we'll move on to discussing player progression systems in general. 4, we'll talk about Star Citizen's progression system. 5, what paying additional money will actually get you in Star Citizen. 6, we'll talk about some additional thoughts, and then finally, we'll end with my conclusion and summary. So let's begin. Let's define what pay-to-win is when it comes to gaming in general. This argument has been raging on far before Star Citizen. Yet, given the funding system designed for Star Citizen, the pay-to-win argument has found a nice comfortable home. To be fair, there are solid arguments to be made on both sides, so my goal is not to play sides, but share my perspective. Though I personally feel that Star Citizen isn't quite pay to win, I can absolutely understand those who may feel that it is. So what is pay to win? In general and in the broadest terms, it is when you are allowed to pay additional money to gain any form of in-game benefit or added gameplay benefits that help you progress faster or easier than others who do not pay the same amount or any additional money at all. So my interpretation of pay-to-win is ever so slightly different than what I have found to be most common in my research. I believe pay-to-win is defined right within its name, and that is the quote-unquote win part of the word. In order for a game to be pay-to-win, there must be some goalpost or some win condition that is designed by the developers and directly affected by paying additional money versus not paying additional money. Allow me to provide an example. Using traditional MMOs, if I buy gear that would alternatively take me 5 months to earn in game, and it directly impacts my PvP capabilities or my ability to level up playing solo, then that is effectively a pay-to-win scenario in my opinion. I paid extra money, and I am now able to progress in the game faster or easier than anyone who has not paid additional money. To me, the win in pay-to-win is the absolute catalyst of the entire argument. Now let's talk in general about game progression systems as we have come to know them in the MMO and RPG space. There are some things we need to lay out for the foundation of our later discussion. To start out, it is important to understand that some games will have some or all of the following aspects of player progression. Here is my list. Number 1, player skill. How well the player can master the game mechanics provided by the game. For Star Citizen, this includes how well a player can conduct ship combat or mining using the in-game mechanics provided by CIG. 2. Character skill. This normally involves a leveling system where the character you play gains skills and abilities as you go along. For Star Citizen, this would be non-existent as the character skill will be directly correlated to the player skill in every category. 3. Character gear and equipment. This is all about the tools your character will use in the game, whether that be gear, armor, usables, ships, and vehicles. These are the things and tools that you will use to conduct missions, fight battles, run your industrial-related businesses, and more. In Star Citizen, this applies. Number 4, skill and level progression system. This involves the mechanics design in the game to facilitate the leveling up experience, whether that be skill-based or character-based. This is the most interesting as it relates to Star Citizen in my opinion. Star Citizen would be almost entirely player skill driven and reputation based as it pertains to leveling up. This piece is central and largely impactful to the argument at hand. So in Star Citizen, what we know so far is that progressing or leveling up will be 100% skill based and charted by the reputation system. So a player's gear, ships, and vehicles are all tools to achieve the goal of building that reputation in game and simply complementing the skill of the player. One thing to consider is that subjectively these tools can also be seen as amplifying player skill. So in this discussion, we have to define what winning is or will be in Star Citizen. Given the sandbox nature of Star Citizen, this will be another thing defined on an individual basis, and understandably so. What we can probably agree on is that within the game, there probably won't be any win conditions defined by CIG, outside of reaching the highest levels of reputation with the different organizations within the game. Again, Star Citizen is a sandbox game with no linear progression paths, only open choice and options provided to the player on what their journey will be or look like. As a result, the question of what are the win conditions for Star Citizen is indeed an important question. Once again, this is something that will have to be defined by each player of the game. To that end, this question is the launch point for most opinions on this. Do you feel reaching a certain status with the Bounty Hunters Guild is your win condition? Maybe being the first to explore the farthest reaches of the verse? Depending on what your answer is, your stance on the pay-to-win argument might be different than one who just wants to roleplay. An interesting point here is that the concepts we discussed on what the general idea of pay-to-win is includes in-game benefits or advantages. This leads me to our next point. With the funding model for Star Citizen, this becomes quite interesting when trying to decide if Star Citizen is a pay-to-win game or not. The funding model for Star Citizen provides options, and in some cases, better tools for gameplay for those willing to spend additional money. Let me dig a bit deeper here for just a second. When some think of pay-to-win, that typically includes grinding time that is saved by buying additional items. This is in fact a thing with Star Citizen. When buying a ship now through pledging, you do in fact save yourself the grind of earning it in-game. However, I believe this is one of the only benefits from pledging now versus earning in-game. I say this because you will have to be capable of maintaining and operating these more advanced ships and vehicles as well. That is something you cannot buy, but will have to grind for just as anyone else when the game releases. So if we take out the sandbox and universe sim aspect of the game, you could argue that there is a pay-to-win element here. By paying money for an advanced ship today, I do save a grind to earn the same ship tomorrow. Even though Star Citizen is a sandbox game, players and organizations will naturally compete with each other. Two organizations with 80 people each, one having a javelin and one not having a javelin, this will clearly provide a slight advantage for the org with the javelin. Even though the org with the javelin will need to buy components and weapons for the capital ship, they do skip the grind of getting the ship in the first place. That is a form of pay-to-win based on its most common definition. However, I would like to suggest that this is not defined by CIG, but rather some players. What I mean to say is that this type of competition is not forced upon the players by the game design or progression system. It is a decision made by the players, given again the sandbox nature of the game. There is no win condition defined by CIG here. This is the foundation of my opinion. I believe when a game is built with a specific linear or progression path that cultivates or forces this sort of competition via the game design, then that facilitates a pay-to-win scenario. I do understand that this is highly subjective, so again, I can understand those who would actually disagree. Some might argue that regardless if CIG defines a win condition or not, this is still a pay-to-win scenario, even if facilitated by players themselves. As with many MMOs, there are other advantages that are not monetary based. How many friends do you play with? Do you play solo? For just about every MMO game that is out there, playing solo literally gates you outside of some game content. Solo players always have to come to grip with the fact that they are 100% gated outside of some game content. In most cases, they cannot play late game content or buy the most expensive in-game assets, etc. So when we start to discuss pay to win, I think this is one topic I don't hear much about. However, it is another form of external social status impacting in-game content and gameplay. Monetary advantages, whether it be cosmetic or gameplay impacting, is not the only method or social status that impacts our experiences in these games. I just felt that was worth noting. So with all that said, here is my conclusion. Star Citizen is a sandbox game with a reputation leveling system. This means everyone, no matter what you have purchased, will start at ground zero in regard to progression. To that end, not everyone will start out at ground level asset-wise. Leveling up is not impacted by what you buy, it is merely a tool to achieve the same goals as anyone else. It also does not necessarily save you time, as you will still need to grind for resources and reputation to achieve most milestones in game, if not all. It will, however, save you time in earning the asset, ship, or vehicles in game. It is on this principle that I form my opinion. Paying to win means you win the game or some game loop by paying more money than someone else. For emergent gameplay, this may be more impactful, but for what the game is, which is a sandbox, I just don't see a real justification or foundation for the pay-to-win argument to have any real legs. Again, this is my opinion, and those who believe it is pay-to-win have some good arguments too, as discussed. Well, that is all for me, and I am curious what your thoughts are. Please share them in the comments below, and I will read to see if some of your thoughts and arguments might impact my own. Hopefully, we'll meet in the verse. Take care.